Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the riding of Port Moody-Coquitlam. Thank you all for being here today. We're gathered here today on the unceded and traditional territory of the Coquitlam First Nation. The Coquitlam First Nation continues to live on this land, to care for it, and also care for the water and the air and all that is below the water. This is one of the greatest salmon rivers in the world here on the Fraser River, and we're happy to see you all today. I got started in public service because I was wanting to have more jobs, more opportunities for working families in our community. I was a working mother myself, and I was transiting down to Vancouver every single day. And I saw all of my colleagues and other parents' friends doing exactly the same thing. So I've been fighting for people in this community, and we know over this pandemic it's become very, very difficult for families to get by. Jagmeet Singh and the NDP team have been working hard for you, and I see Jagmeet is here today. I want to welcome you. Welcome Jagmeet to Port Moody-Coquitlam. Please, Jagmeet Singh.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Good to see you, Bonita.
Yes,
You're
thank
awesome.
you.
Thanks everybody for being here. Thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Thanks so much, everybody. I'm really excited to be here in Port Moody-Coquitlam. You just heard from Bonita Zarrillo, an incredible voice for the community, city councilor, but someone who's going to be an amazing voice in Ottawa. Can't wait for Bonita to join me in Ottawa. So today we're at Novo Textiles, and I have to give a big shout out to Jason, owner and president. This is exactly the type of business that we want to support. When we saw the pandemic hit, and some of the most important equipment that we needed to stay safe, to keep our workers safe, we realized was not produced in Canada. And we were at the whims of global logistics. We could not get the equipment we needed. And we were lucky that companies like Novo and innovators like Jason thought, we can start producing some of this equipment here in Canada. But it shouldn't have to be that people scramble to solve this problem. What we need to do is make sure we are investing and supporting local manufacturing in Canada, particularly manufacturing equipment that will keep workers safe. So what we are committed to doing, what New Democrats are committed to doing, and what I want to announce today, is that New Democrats would invest in making sure we produce and manufacture critical equipment like what Novo produces in Canada. We need to support businesses like Novo to ensure that they can expand and grow, that we help them with local, national, Canadian distribution of their equipment, but also allow them to be exporters as well and assist them in opening up to global markets. That's what New Democrats believe. We need to be able to produce and manufacture in Canada. For years and years, we've seen Liberals and Conservatives allow manufacturing to be eroded to the point that we were not producing some of the most important equipment that we need in our own country. We want to stop that trend and make sure we support and invest in local companies so that we can produce the equipment we need in any eventuality in the future. Donc, aujourd'hui, ce que je veux annoncer, c'était pendant la pandémie, quand on a eu besoin d'équipements de protection. On a appris que cet équipement n'était pas produit au Canada. C'était un grand enjeu, c'était un grand défi parce que au moment donné qu'on a vu, on a besoin de cet équipement, on a dû demander l'équipement des autres pays. Et c'était un grand délai pour avoir l'équipement nécessaire pour protéger nos travailleurs et travailleuses de première ligne. C'était un grand problème. Et c'était un problème causé par le fait que les gouvernements libéraux et conservateurs, depuis des années, ont laissé le secteur de fabrication au Canada quitter le Canada et on était dans une situation difficile à cause de ça. Ce qu'on veut faire, ce que je vais annoncer aujourd'hui, un gouvernement néo-démocrate investira dans les compagnies locaux. pour qu'on puisse produire l'équipement de protection et les autres équipements nécessaires dans notre pays. C'est quelque chose d'essentiel. On veut appuyer nos entreprises locaux et ce qu'on veut faire, c'est de s'assurer que les autres riches, les grandes compagnies payent le juste part pour qu'on puisse investir dans les compagnies comme Novo ici, pour appuyer les compagnies locaux qui investissent dans la production d'équipements nécessaires au Canada. Donc, merci encore pour votre présence. Thanks so much for being here. And with that, I'm ready to take any questions you might have.
Merci, thank you. We will start with questions on the floor. I have Olivia Stefanovic from CBC News.
Good morning, Mr. Singh. I would like to ask you about the situation in Afghanistan. Should Canada and other NATO allies be engaging with the Taliban? And we heard Liberal leader Justin Trudeau call the Taliban a terrorist organization. Do you agree with that?
It's really clear that the Taliban is a terrorist organization, and it's an organization that we should not be. We should not recognize. It's clearly a terrorist organization. They put people's lives at risk. And I just have to take a moment to express how horrifying what's going on in Afghanistan is. We've seen just incredibly scary images coming out of people in desperation trying to flee what they know is likely death or severe persecution. To see those images of people clinging to airplanes and people that are so desperate to leave that they're putting their lives at risk really paints a picture of how dangerous things are. I particularly want to highlight how important it is for Canadians, for us as a nation, to support our allies. There were people that put their lives at risk in Canada, in Afghanistan, to support Canadian troops. And in Canada, we have a responsibility to support those troops or those allies in evacuating and providing any help we can to those that put their lives at risk to support us and our troops.
On mandatory vaccinations, you said you'd like to see progressive discipline for those in the public service who refuse a shot. What exactly do you mean by that? What does that look like?
So first and foremost, the reason why we believe in vaccination is because we want to protect people. And Canadians want to protect each other. That is something very Canadian, that we want to take care of our neighbors. And so when we look at this question of mandatory vaccination, it's really about protecting those that can't protect themselves. And the reason why we set the deadline for Labor Day is because we are really thinking about kids. Children under 12 cannot get vaccinated. They simply can't right now. And so every adult that gets vaccinated means we are making it easier for and we're protecting the people around us, particularly kids. And in that case, that's why I strongly believe in a mandatory vaccination. And what that looks like is going to be that we're going to say to work in a certain employment federally and federally regulated, that you need to be vaccinated. Now, people have the choice not to get vaccinated, but there will be consequences for those choices. Our goal is to protect people. Our goal is to protect and keep people safe. And that's why we are encouraging people to get vaccinated.
So what are the consequences? Would anybody be fired?
So the consequences, we'd follow through on the collective agreements and make sure that we're following through on collective agreements. But at the end of the day, if someone doesn't get vaccinated in places where we know that it would put people at risk and it's vital to get vaccinated, then they would not be able to continue working in those places. People have the choice not to get vaccinated, but it is essential that we set up every step possible to encourage people getting vaccinated.
En français, s'il te plaît.
Donc, notre position pour la vaccination mandatoire, c'est oui, on veut s'assurer que tout le monde soit vacciné. Et la raison pour laquelle, c'est parce qu'on sait, si on est vacciné, on protège les gens autour de nous. Et en particulier, je pense des enfants de moins de 12 ans qui ne peuvent pas être vaccinés eux-mêmes. C'est pour protéger ces enfants qu'on veut être vacciné. Donc, ce que je dis, c'est pour les travailleurs qui on peut créer une vaccination mandatoire, ils ont un choix, mais s'ils ne décident pas d'être vaccinés, on va avoir des conséquences. Et donc, on va suivre les accords collectifs, on va travailler avec les syndicats, mais effectivement, tous les travailleurs doivent être vaccinés. c'est important, particulier au niveau fédéral. Dans notre juridiction, on veut s'assurer que tous nos travailleurs et travailleuses soient vaccinés.
Next.
Oh, yes. Okay, yes. Donc, on ne reconnaît pas les talibans parce que les talibans, c'est comme un gouvernement, parce qu'on reconnaît les talibans comme une groupe terroriste, et c'est un groupe on a beaucoup peur pour ce qui va passer pour les gens. On a vu des images horribles sortant d'Afghanistan, de ce qui se passe. C'est une situation vraiment horrible. C'est un grand danger ce qui se passe. Et c'est pourquoi on exige le gouvernement et tous nos alliés de faire tout ce qu'on peut pour aider dans l'évacuation de nos alliés, des gens qui ont aidé nos armes, nos forces canadiennes. Et c'est vraiment une situation horrible ce qui se passe. Et j'encourage tous nos alliés à travers le monde de faire tout ce qu'on peut pour protéger les gens qui essaient de quitter le pays.
Next question, we have Annie Bergeron-Oliver from CTV News.
Hi there. So my question is about this announcement today. So we're in a facility that's obviously manufacturing PPE and N95s. They've made that shift. For companies who have not yet made that shift, what is the reason that they should under this new NDP plan? What specific benefits will they get to do it? And for companies that already have made the shift, how are you going to ensure that they're still going to be able to keep up support when inevitably and hopefully sometime soon the demand for PPE for things like gowns and respirators drops substantially?
It's a really important question, and what I want to highlight is, first of all, we really have to acknowledge the incredible ingenuity and courage that it took, and the initiative that it took companies like Nova Textiles and Jason as the leader. The work that he showed, the leadership that he showed to make that pivot has really helped out a lot of people, and we can't highlight that enough. So what we want to do is a couple of things. First off, for companies that have made the shift like Novo, what we would do is invest in helping companies expand to other jurisdictions in Canada, so other provinces and territories, and assist them in expanding globally so they can export. So providing that really focused attention to supporting local businesses grow and expand. We would also develop plans to assist other companies that want to make that transition with federal investments that support and encourage that manufacturing. We know that there may be a time that we get past this pandemic and we stop thinking about the immediacy of and the urgency of it, but we know that we will always need to have protective equipment. So we need to make sure government policies are encouraging that ongoing production that allow these companies to continue to produce, because we never want to be in a situation where we find ourselves without the essential equipment. We need to keep workers safe in a pandemic like we found ourselves in. So to prevent that, we want to make investments in the long term so companies can continue to produce that in Canada.
Okay, thank you. And my follow-up is on vaccines. It seems like each party has a slightly different stance on vaccinations and whether they should be mandatory. And I'm wondering if you have any concern that the debate this campaign will potentially politicize an issue that's already so divisive and so controversial and sensitive.
I am concerned about that, and I hope what we can do is we think about what is the purpose of this. And there is a moment here where we can come together, and I really want to find a way for us to come together. It's about keeping people safe. And I think when we speak to people, we speak to Canadians, they want to keep each other safe. There are Canadians that agree that makes sense. When you put it to people, would you do whatever it takes to take care of your neighbors? Would you be a part of an initiative to make sure that we keep kids safe? People want to do that. And so I think we need to put more emphasis on trusting that Canadians want to do what's best, but we need to provide people with more education, more awareness, and more transparency. I think when we answer the questions that people have, we provide real good reasons why we need to do this. I really believe that Canadians want to do everything they can to do their part to fight this pandemic. So that's something I think we've got to keep in mind. I hope we can really come together around the fact that there are public health experts that provide science-based, evidence-based reasons for us to do certain things that will keep us safe. And I want us to really believe in that instead of getting caught up in what is popular, what opinion is going to get people more votes. I really just want to do what's best for people, what's based on the evidence, and I believe in my heart that Canadians want to do that as well. We just have to provide them with the tools to make the best decisions.
Prochaine question, Jean-Sébastien Cloutier de Radio-Canada.
Bonjour. Sur
Bonjour.
l'annonce du jour,
Oui.
c'est important de fabriquer au Canada, effectivement, mais l'économie mondiale, M. Singh, ça marche beaucoup avec les multinationales aussi. Vous dites quoi aux gens qui disent que ce n'est pas réaliste de les exclure ou de ne pas les aider parfois?
Je pense que dans une question de ce qui s'est passé dans la pandémie, on a vu que le système a été brisé. Notre système économique qui a créé, qui fait en sorte que tous nos équipements nécessaires étaient fabriqués dehors du Canada, c'était une mauvaise décision. Et on a vu l'impact de ça. Donc, je veux régler ça. Je veux encourager la production, la fabrication d'équipements au Canada. Et les Canadiens sont d'accord. Ils savent que ils savaient que c'était un problème pendant la pandémie, le fait qu'on ne produit pas, on ne fabrique pas l'équipement nécessaire dans notre pays. On veut régler ça et on va appuyer les entreprises comme Novo qui l'a fait, mais on va aussi encourager les autres compagnies de produire et de fabriquer ici au Canada, et on peut le faire. J'ai confiance qu'on peut le faire.
Votre investiture est virtuelle ce soir en raison de la pandémie. Faire campagne en 2021, comment vous vivez ça jusqu'à maintenant au Québec, à Montréal, lors de la marche à la fierté? Vous n'étiez pas toujours à 1 mètre de distance des militants. Peut-être nous dire pourquoi et comment vous vivez une campagne comme ça en pleine pandémie?
Une autre raison pour laquelle on a dit que Justin Trudeau n'aurait dû pas déclencher une élection dans une pandémie, et aussi c'est une autre raison pour souligner le fait qu'il a promis de ne pas faire déclencher une élection pendant la pandémie, mais il a effectivement brisé sa promesse. Mais on fait tout ce qu'on peut. On a des protocoles, comme vous avez vu, que je porte mon masque tout le temps quand je suis dehors. Même je suis dehors, mais parce que je sais que les gens peut-être vont être près de moi. Donc, je suis vacciné avec 2 doses et toute mon équipe est vaccinée aussi avec 2 doses. Et aussi, on porte les masques tout le temps. Donc, on essaie de suivre tous les conseils d'experts de santé publique et on est toujours ouvert à améliorer notre approche avec des guides, des conseils qu'on a reçus.
Prochaine question, Michael Couture, Global News.
Mr. Singh,
Hey
you
there.
keep saying that Mr. Trudeau says a lot of nice words and doesn't back them up. But even just today, you're saying you'll invest in these companies and you'll change government policies with 0 specifics. So why aren't you giving us specifics on how much money you'll invest in these companies or what government policies you'll change? Because other than that, I mean, are you just saying you're different than Justin Trudeau? How are you different than Justin Trudeau if you're not giving specifics on what you'll do differently?
So with respect to a company like Novo, we said really clearly what we need to do is have a really aggressive strategy around supporting these companies to expand domestically, making sure that companies that produce material that is necessary like PPE, that they're able to expand within Canada, and also supporting them to expand outside of Canada. We also want to make sure that we have investments, that we use federal dollars to invest in companies to encourage that production of essential things like PPE in Canada. We need to make sure that we are stopping the foreign takeover that happens often when we've got local Canadian companies that then are taken over. Foreign takeovers allow these companies to be bought out and then shipped offshores, and we lose those jobs and we lose that manufacturing capacity. So we would prevent that from happening. What our approach is one of making sure we do everything possible to invest in businesses in Canada, support them, and a different approach from what we've seen in the past number of decades where the Liberals and Conservatives didn't even have the desire to keep manufacturing in Canada. They were very much of the line that globalism is fine, we don't have to worry about local manufacturing, we can allow it to go offshore. Really, it's the will. We often see in politics, if you desire something to happen, it will happen. When Justin Trudeau wanted to help out the banks, he immediately put forward billions of dollars of support to help out the big banks, but didn't have a plan in place for small businesses, didn't have a plan in place for manufacturing in Canada. So it's a lot of the decisions that are made by governments are based on the will. And my will is to invest in local companies, to support Canadians in our times of need, to have the capacity to produce and manufacture in Canada.
And just more specifically on British Columbia, what is your offer to people in this province, seeing as how there are a number of very tight three-way races? Why do you think you have a realistic shot, and what are you offering to people here that is different from 2019 where you couldn't pick up seats?
Well, a couple of things different. We know that in this really difficult time, we can point to real victories that we were able to win for people, and we made people's lives better. No other opposition party can point to successive victories that actually improve people's lives the way we can. When people were struggling to deal with the pandemic and were having a hard time, we were the ones that fought to double serve. We made that happen. And 8 million Canadians were able to receive $1,000 more a month because we were there to fight for them. That's people in British Columbia, that's people across Canada. When companies were struggling with keeping their workers hired and workers were worried about losing their jobs, the Liberals started off the wage subsidy at 10%. Those New Democrats had fought to increase that to 75%. And in doing so, we saved millions of jobs. So the people of British Columbia directly felt the impact of New Democrats fighting for them. But really the question comes down to in this election, will we let Justin Trudeau continue to give the super wealthy companies like Amazon a free ride, companies that make money off the backs of Canadians but pay virtually no taxes here? Local Canadian companies pay their fair share. It shouldn't be that a foreign company gets to get away with not paying their fair share. We're the only party clearly stating we will make sure the Amazons of the world pay their fair share and we can invest that into local businesses, into people. Without New Democrats, it will not happen.
En français, s'il te plaît.
Donc, ce qu'on peut montrer ici en Colombie-Britannique, mais aussi à travers le pays, on a un bilan. On peut montrer comment les néo-démocrates ont amélioré la vie des gens pendant cette pandémie. C'était nous qui ont doublé la PCU, c'était nous qui ont augmenté la subvention salariale. Et en faisant ça, on a sauvé des millions d'emplois, on a aidé des millions de Canadiens et Canadiennes de rester chez eux. Et pour la relance, pour l'avenir, la grande question, c'est, on a vu que Justin Trudeau a effectivement laissé les grandes entreprises internationales de gagner des profits records sans payer le juste part. On est le seul parti qui dit clairement qu'on va s'assurer que les ultra-riches payent le juste part pour investir dans les entreprises locaux, comme ici, et pour aider les gens. On est le seul parti qui a cette réponse et qui va vraiment aider les gens.
Next question, we've got Prabhjot Kalan from Omni News.
Hi, so I have again a question about the Afghanistan situation. As we know, Mr. Trudeau promised for 20,000 to bring from Afghanistan to here. And we know today one flight landed a few minutes ago in Toronto airport as well. But the local community is asking more, way more. And secondly, do you think it's going to be possible to take them out from the situation right now under the Taliban?
It's really heartbreaking with religious minorities in Afghanistan who are directly at threat. Our allies are at threat and their lives are at threat. We've already seen translators and allies that work with Canadian forces that have already lost their lives. We also know that religious minorities in Afghanistan will be persecuted. So there's particularly a population of Sikhs as well as Hindus that are at risk right now in Afghanistan. And for a long time, many people have been raising voices about these deep concerns. And Justin Trudeau's ignored those concerns for a long time. He could have acted a lot sooner. and now we're at the 11th hour, and it is very desperate. So we've got to continue to do everything possible to make sure people that are fleeing this danger, this real threat to their lives, are evacuated. We need to work with our allies to do everything possible, but it is really, really troubling to me that because Justin Trudeau waited so long, the situation is a lot worse.
Are you suggesting more than 20,000 we should bring here in Canada?
We need to do everything we can to help people evacuate from this real serious humanitarian crisis. And particularly given that there are a number of people that were allies to Canadian forces that provided help, they absolutely need to be relocated and evacuated. And we know that there are a lot of religious minorities that are also fearing for their lives right now, and we have to step up.
Hi, Mr. Singh again. I just have a quick follow-up
Sure.
on Afghanistan. You said you call the Taliban a terrorist organization, but would you talk with the Taliban leadership at all? Should there be conditions set for diplomatic conversations?
Right now, it's clear that this is a terrorist organization and that they are literally terrorizing a population. And so my position is it's a terrorist group. It's not a legitimate government. This is a group that is instilling fear and putting people's lives at risk, and it is not a group that we should be working with.
Next question will go on Zoom. If you've got a question, please use the raise your hand function. Si vous avez une question, s'il vous plaît, utilisez la fonction lever la main. On a une question de Raphaël Pirot de l'agence QMI. Raphaël, es-tu sur sourdine? Raphaël, on va revenir, on va passer à la prochaine question, puis on va revenir dans 2 petites secondes. La prochaine question, on a Mylène Crête de Le Devoir.
Bonjour, M. Singh.
Bonjour.
J'aimerais savoir, au Québec, est-ce que vous pensez que le gouvernement fédéral devrait financer une partie du 3e lien, là, ce pont entre Québec et Lévis?
Merci pour la question. Donc, ce qu'on a dit avec les investissements pour l'avenir, c'est qu'on doit investir dans l'infrastructure et pour faire face à la crise climatique. Donc, ce sont nos priorités ou nos critères pour l'investissement. Je sais que la question de 3e ligne, c'est toujours une grande question et il y a des questions sur l'impact sur l'environnement et ce sont des questions que le Québec va régler. Mais ce qu'on doit faire comme investissement, c'est clair qu'on fait face à une grande crise avec le change climatique. Donc, on doit cibler nos efforts pour créer des emplois de qualité et aussi d'investir dans les